I am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interview Daniel Lemin, a best-selling author, podcast host, and advisor who helps brands and executives behind them build and protect their digital reputation. He delivers thought leadership consulting through his firm, One Good Brand, and reputation intelligence threat assessments and advisory services through Repwise Group. He has worked with some of the largest and most iconic brands and executives in the world. A native of Ohio, Daniel earned his MBA from Quantic School of Business and Technology and his MA in Communications and Leadership from Gonzaga. He lives in Los Angeles with his rescue dog, Olivia. He also loves small venue live shows, heist movies, and airline liveries. In this episode, we discuss Daniel's background, upbringing, and career path, including the experiences in show choir, his passion for water, his shift to business and communications. We delved into his journey of digital communications and the importance of social media for organizations, the value of understanding and connecting with your target audience, and the importance of seeking good mentors and helping others. I hope you enjoy this interview with Daniel Lemin. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs. And today I am with Daniel Lemin. And Daniel, you want to give a little background on yourself before we begin?
Yeah, Amy, thanks for bringing me on and having me on the show. I am the founder of a new company called Repwise Group. That's my most recent bio bullet, as it were, but longtime practitioner of communications, digital marketing, kind of a lens on online reputation and search engine optimization, things like that. Written a couple of books along the way about word of mouth marketing, online reviews, all things troll and shadowy figures on the internet. But it's been kind of a meandering path. I don't think anyone would have said at the beginning, this was what I'm going to end up doing.
Me either. I'm with you. So great. And all of those things that you are talking about are things that I think everybody needs information on. So we will get there on that journey of how you got to this place of what you do. So you want to just start off letting us know, where were you born and grew up, and what did your parents do for a living?
Sure. I have the distinction, along with my brother. I guess technically he probably would hold this title first, but first college graduates in our family. I grew up in Ohio, small town, known for one thing and one thing only. It's the town where Wilson manufactures the Super Bowl footballs.
Oh,
So
wow.
every year around January, the news crews roll into this small town, and it's the same ladies who have been making those footballs for years and years, and their hands, frankly, sort of look like footballs themselves. Uh, so I grew up there, and I ended up in college there too. My
What was
mom,
the city?
it's a city. Well, it's really a town, I think is how you would say it. Ada, ADA, Ada,
Oh,
Ohio.
okay. I've grown up in Ohio and I've never heard of it.
It's unless you follow the Super Bowl, you probably wouldn't have had a chance.
What's the closest city to it? What bigger city?
Sort of triangulated between Fort Wayne, Toledo,
Oh, okay.
Dayton, Columbus. It's sort of
Okay.
it's in the northwest corner of Ohio.
Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
More.
near the NFL? Isn't the NFL Hall of Fame around there? Or no, that's the Air Force. Air Force.
Mm, there's a
Dayton. There's the Air.
gorgeous Air Force museum in Dayton.
Yeah.
right, Patterson. Yeah. So it's not far from there.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Um, my mom worked at the university where I ended up at undergrad, and so that was uh, nice and led to a somewhat free education, which is a very rare thing. And looking back, I probably should have been more grateful for it at the time. And my dad is an electrician. He's sort of a technical guy. He worked at Procter and Gamble, where they
Oh,
make
okay.
all the soap,
Yes.
all of
Yeah.
it. Mhm.
And did he work in Cincinnati at Procter and Gamble or where?
No, he worked at they have a big manufacturing facility in Lima, Ohio.
Oh, okay. All
Yep.
right, got it. Yep. So uh so were you with what your dad did as an electrician, did he ever teach you anything he was doing?
I mean, he's my dad. He's taught me so many things over the years. I'm just not super like electronically inclined. I'm
Yeah.
technology inclined, but like when it gets into the actual thing, like the components, I
Yeah,
just my brain isn't it doesn't
wired
compute
to
those
do that.
things.
Yeah.
So when it comes to electrical work, even around the house, I'm like, nope, that is a thing to hire somebody for.
Exactly. And are you the oldest or was your brother older or
I'm the youngest. My brother's
okay.
5 years older.
Okay. Great. So what was your favorite thing to do when you grew up?
Gosh, I did so many. I wasn't really into sports. I did sort of the high school choir. I
Uh-huh.
was actually in show choir, funny enough.
Really?
Yeah, the full on Glee show
Okay.
choir. And fun fact, we uh the the show Glee, if you've
Uh-huh.
watched it,
Yeah.
is based on a school in Lima, Ohio.
Really?
And we used to compete against them all the time and went to state championship and beat them even. So
Oh, woo.
must say, not bad at the show choir. I can sing
Yeah.
and I can dance, and I
You
look
can
great in
dance
sequence.
too. Wow. All right. And do you still sing or dance?
No, I don't.
Okay.
That was a defined period of time in my life.
Yeah. So when you were young, what were the things that you wanted to do when you grew up then? So you weren't electricity inclined, things that your dad wanted to do. What things interested you?
I have a genuine fondness for the animal kingdom, all animal kind, really.
Uh-huh.
Some people are drawn to people. I'm always been drawn to animals. So I thought at the time I went to college, undergrad, I was like, I'm going to become a marine biologist because I lived near water. I mean, I don't know why I thought of all of the things. Marine biology was my calling, but I did great up until like chemistry class
Uh-huh.
and biochemistry, and I thought maybe I've made a wrong choice here. So I ended up switching to business and communications as my area of study, which was just by accident. And
Mhm.
the only reason I think I chose it is the professor, the mentor who ran that program. I just knew I wanted to be around him and study
Uh-huh.
with him, and so I chose him more than the
Wow.
actual
Uh-huh.
work. I didn't know what that work was going to be, but he and I are still good friends today.
Oh, that's cool. So as far as animals, what drew you to marine animals? Like why was that the specialty you wanted to go into?
I'm just a water baby. Like
Okay.
I love the water. I love the ocean. I live near the ocean in Los Angeles now. I
Okay.
could never imagine living anywhere but near water, I think.
Yeah.
And so that I was just drawn to it. It's just so mysterious to it. I find
Yeah.
it's like
So,
another planet down there.
yeah. So do you scuba dive or?
No, the other irony is I'm a little bit claustrophobic, so
Okay.
we kind of have to keep it to
Like
the
aquariums. Yeah.
15, 15 feet under the surface or less is
Yeah. Okay. Got
my
it.
comfort zone.
Yeah. So, all right. So take us on this journey. So you went into business and communications, for because this professor was influential. What was it about the professor that changed your mind to go into such a different field?
I think he, I mean, I just had a sense he was a good mentor. And I
Hmm.
kind of thought like I didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point, but
Hmm.
I knew he would help me, and I couldn't say the same for professors in any other department or program. It's felt like I'm going to be in good hands here. I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm going to end up doing with all of this information, but I feel like it's going to be a good experience, and it was. I mean, he classic good mentor. He's also got a sense of humor that very rare, and made class always an enjoyable thing to show up to. So that was part of his magic, was actually getting students to attend class.
Yeah.
Um, but he just was a good coach. He sort of guided me. I ended up sort of being part of the National Student Association that we was in our industry, public relations,
Hmm.
and yeah, he was just kind of a good general mentor.
Yeah. So how did you encounter him in the first place? Like, how did you know he was a good professor?
I took one of his general education, his like everyone
Oh,
has to take classes, and I was like, oh, that was fun. I quite like him, and the subject matter was interesting too. It's communications. It's not, you know, earth shattering, but
yeah.
it was of interest to me, and so I knew I couldn't do marine biology any longer because I was going to be kicked out of that program pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a natural transition.
And as far as like you said that your brother and yourself were the first uh generation to go to college, how did you even take that leap to go to college in the first place or think that that was possible for you?
It was just parents. They really pushed us to do it. My mom had quite fortuitously um, gotten a job at the university, so we would have a heavily discounted, not quite free, but heavily discounted private school education, which is worth a lot.
Yeah.
And it just really pushed us, my brother and me both, to go do it,
Hmm.
no matter what we ended up doing with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like, when you found him, you were really looking for that mentor, that someone to kind of navigate this for you since no one had done that before in your life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's probably a good way of saying it.
Yeah. So with that, then how did this evolve into work for you? So what was your first job coming out of school?
I I I stuck to the knitting on the PR front. So I studied public relations, and I just went for it.
Hmm.
I had a couple of internships while I was in college, um, and got to live in different places. I did a summer in Washington, D.C., working for the Points of Light Foundation,
Hmm.
which was awesome. Really good experience. I had a internship working for Microsoft the other summer, and I being drawn to kind of the water, I knew I wanted to move to one of the coasts. The West Coast seemed the most intuitive one because the weather is frankly better. And so I ended up in I had an interest in technology at the time. It was kind of the gold rush of everyone going into technology. So I ended up in San Francisco, and
Nice.
I just sort of accidentally fell into a tech PR career.
So, and how did, so maybe explain what that was like and how you navigated to become successful in that because I know from being around PR people, it's a pretty competitive market and it's very hard to be successful.
That's true. And you know what's funny is I'm a genuine introvert.
Uh-huh.
So never been an intuitive profession for
Mm-hmm.
me because of that. But
Uh-huh.
being an introvert, a student of people. I just really study people deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was actually something that has been beneficial in my career. But talking just genuinely about the power of having good people in your life. My first job out of sort of college, I worked for a credit card sort of startup-y company in San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and that company ended up going bankrupt and going out of business. But my my boss there, Camille, was quite fond of me, and I after she had to give the news that the company was pretty much laying everyone off and then having to get laid off herself. One of those days, we kept in touch, and she knew I had applied for a position at a little company called Google, and uh, sought took the opportunity up took it upon herself to go to an industry event, seek out the vice president of communications at Google, and just sort of let her know that I'm the one that they should hire.
Wow.
And she didn't I didn't ask her to do I didn't know she was going to that event. I didn't ask her to certainly would never have asked that of her, and she didn't tell me she was doing it. I didn't even find out about it until I got the call that, oh hey, you're getting an offer. You need to thank Camille Lepre for really pushing us over the edge on you. I was like, what do you mean? And then they told me the story. It's like, geez,
Wow.
it's just the power of, I think, having good people in your corner, uh, and part of that's just showing up that way for other people too.
Mhm.
I think that's always been the case.
Yeah. I mean, you had to have done some pretty amazing things for her to go out of her way like that.
I guess she was fond of me. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, so that's really important is having this network of people that you can go to and people that support you and you support them back. Um, so how did you end up taking that job at Google?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
Oh, okay.
I was uh I I don't know why they hired me, to be honest with you. But yeah, definitely I took the job and it was amazing.
So what was the role and what did you do there?
It was a PR role, so I was kind of the young kid on the team and did a lot of things there, including manning the press hotline, answering, you know, inbound questions from media and a lot of users too who wanted t-shirts and free stuff. Uh, and everything from that to running press conferences is kind of the full gamut. We kind of joked it was like the White House press office because there were only about 10 of us on the team,
Mhm.
12, and there were hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands of employees. And
Yeah.
there were still just a few of us on our little team. So it felt kind of very much like high pressure press office.
Yeah. So being an introvert in this type of role, I would guess when you're getting questions from a hotline and um, any kind of inbound questions and you've got to give answers right away. How did your communications background help you with that to be able to answer on the fly?
I think media relations it's really something you learn by instinct, and it's not a skill that you learn, it's a skill that you practice, and you have to do it to be good at it.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say I ever became great at it. It was the my least favorite part of the job, to be honest. But I kept myself honest on it by just staying on script, staying on point, you know, speaking on background, like some of the tricks that PR pros have to use to, um, I think, stay sane.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something I was ever super intuitive, though. I had others on my team, other people I've known in my career who are genuinely amazing at that skill. They just know how to handle the media. And it's a different thing than handling a crowd. I mean, I speak now in front of thousands of people at conferences. It's a totally different skill set.
Yeah. So, well, from there, what did you end up doing?
Yeah, so I spent a few years at Google on that team. Ended up taking a sabbatical after. It's a pretty intense work environment,
Hmm.
and I needed to unwind a little and
Hmm.
kind of focus on health after that experience. And met somebody, decided to move to Los Angeles, where I live now, and got back into the field. I got back into the communications field, but more on the digital and kind of on the marketing side. So I don't really do media relations anymore. I decided that
Hmm.
was not my first skill, but I am good at the digital stuff.
Yeah. So maybe give a little more explanation of that and what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of started that. It was the beginning of what became like social media. So it was
Hmm.
MySpace and Facebook at the time, and uh, brands, organizations were just figuring out how to adapt what they do to that environment. So that's been kind of the thing I've focused on, is staying on top of those innovations, helping organizations fix themselves so that they can take full advantage of what has become, I think, is just the media at this point. I mean, who
Hmm.
watches TV or reads newspapers anymore? It is our attention is on these platforms. So and it's remarkable to me even now. There are clients I've worked with, I would say somewhat recently, they're like, we should get started on social media. Yeah, you probably should. I think I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. So it is still an evolution that's happening, but
Well, and I would say I speak a lot in the accounting profession, and probably my profession would be a laggard in social media, because there is a stigma of what's appropriate for an accountant or a CPA to be doing online. And I think there's also generational differences between, partners of one generation and new professionals that are coming in that have used TikTok and Snapchat and Facebook and all of these other applications where they're ready to go on TikTok. And I've still heard people in my generation and older be like, why we wouldn't go on TikTok, So how do you help people get over that mindset, and what is the appropriate um way for the strategy for them to be able to utilize it?
yeah, I mean, it kind of comes from one of two places. One, the first, I guess option A would be, we just want to be on the channels so that we're present and accounted for. There's a
Hmm.
lot of good reasons to do that. If you don't do it, someone else will do it in your place. May even
Right.
impersonate Amy Vetter on, TikTok and kind of stand in your place. I That's the work I've been focusing on recently, is sort of uh, uh, scams and impersonations and that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
as an area I find super
Generative
interesting.
AI. Yeah.
Um, the alternative is that you actually want to be focused and engaged on those platforms because you see them as an opportunity to sort of reach a new generation of people, or really just transform your business.
Hmm.
And neither is the wrong answer, but I think the latter answer really requires thinking audience first. Like, what value do you have as an accountant, or do you have in, no matter what space you're in, what value do you have, and how can you help?
Hmm.
And focus on what the audience wants and needs, not so
Hmm.
much on the format. I've seen some amazing TikTokers who, if you were just objectively to look at their content, it's terrible. But it's the thing they're sharing that is
Hmm.
so powerful. There's someone we actually interviewed her on the podcast I co-host called Social Pros.
Hmm.
She runs a piercing shop in Phoenix, and has a just very specific way she does social media. It's just a before and after, pretty much.
Hmm.
And then she describes like why I chose this particular pattern on the ear, and it's pretty rudimentary the way she does it.
Yeah.
She doesn't sway from that format, but it works. She has, I think, over 1 million followers on her
Mm-hmm.
account, who some of them actually seek her out in real life to and fly to her to get a piercing done.
Right.
She's an artist, but she's a good storyteller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this is hard, just what you were saying about think about my audience first, which is whether you're doing a website or any kind of marketing. I was just in a session with a number of accounting firms the other day, and just to get to a 2-minute pitch of what they do or why they do it versus what they're doing. So
Hmm.
usually it comes out of, we offer, tax compliance services or, things like that, not the why behind what they're doing. What is the value that they're actually creating? What would be the person's pain point of why you're different than the accountant down the street? So
Hmm.
it can sound so easy to say, think about your audience first and what value, but it's the work to figure out what your value is and gain agreement on it.
Yeah, and it isn't always manifest right at the beginning. Sometimes you kind of have to start and then you figure it out. Like
Hmm.
it's not always easy to know what your audience needs.
Right.
And they may not even themselves be able to articulate what that is to you. So you kind of if you're waiting for that aha moment, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it until you've started like, oh, that didn't work, but this did. That's
Right.
surprising.
So how would you know something worked or didn't work?
I mean, you'll see it. You'll see it in some of the. I mean, you may see it like something goes viral. That frankly doesn't really happen all that often. But what you may see mm, sort of manifest are like comments that really speak to you. Like, oh, I didn't know people would see that topic that way,
Hmm.
or think about that topic that way. And when you see that, then you've got the moment. Then you can kind of build on that, and that's part of the magic of marketing in general. But it is a special thing to social media because it happens so quickly, and it can be a very fleeting, you know, insight.
So, what's been interesting for me and with my market is they're not necessarily people that are going to comment or like, because they don't want to show it out there. However, when I see them in person, they'll tell me how important the content's been to them or how much they enjoy it. So when you're dealing with an audience that isn't necessarily gonna say it or show it, how do you evaluate?
Well, I think you actually just nailed it. I mean, you if you have the instinct, maybe they're not. This isn't an audience that is likely to comment, but you think they're watching. You can kind of see either in views or downloads, like you know that there's an audience there.
Hmm.
Then you have to find other ways of asking, like, have you seen my stuff? Have you found it useful? Has it been helpful in any way, in any fashion? And I think that's a thing a lot of organizations overlook is the that opportunity for secondary feedback that isn't in the platform in the moment.
Hmm.
Even asking if for small business, where did you find us? How
Hmm.
did you come? It was as a referral from a friend. That would be great. Did you see me on TikTok? Oh, cool. I love
Yeah.
that. And a lot of people forget to ask that question. You know,
Yeah.
thanks for the call. Where did you hear about us?
Yeah. I think that's really important because on too many times when I've been in corporate environments, it's always on these metrics that don't actually necessarily correlate with the audience and who you're trying to attract, or that's how relationships are built. So it's just an interesting thing of how you figure it out for each audience of what's appropriate.
Hmm. Hmm.
So how did you get into speaking?
Um, also quite by accident. I working in I should say when I moved to Los Angeles, I took a role at a PR firm,
Mm-hmm.
and part of the anyone who works in any kind of firm, be it PR, ad agency, accounting firm, often part of the job is a sales job. You kind of have to get out and do pitches, and often that means conferences. So I
Mm-hmm.
started doing sort of industry conferences, and it snowballed a little bit from there. Um, Accelerated after I wrote my first book on ratings and reviews.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I wouldn't say speaking career, but my time as a speaker accelerated, and I started doing more events, bigger events, and a more regular cadence of events. And so I've kind of focused on trying to grow it and build it as one of the pillars of my business consulting, speaking, and I say books. I don't know. Maybe there's a third book in me. I'm not entirely sure yet, but
So what is your value that you provide that you're trying to get out there?
yeah, for it's varied over the years. I'm a very content focused speaker. There are, I think, different kinds of people who speak. Some are more inspirational, or motivate you to go do things. I tend to be more of a teacher content heavy
Mm-hmm.
person.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm usually intensely focused on the material that I have. It was a whole set of workshops on ratings and reviews, how to sort of use them for your business. Um, and that was a track that I did for a long time. Right now, I'm focused on reputation management, online reputation, avoiding scams, hackers, that kind of stuff. But I think the thread through all of it is trying to be uh, an inch ahead of where people are, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily a future casting type of thing, but to sort of pull people along whatever journey evolution they may be on, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of social and digital marketing. So it's kind of like a marketing Sherpa, as it were.
Yeah.
I've been
So
up the mountain and now I'm coming back for you.
um as you know, you're saying you're an introvert, but like some of your hobbies being choir and dancing and now being a speaker and being in front of the press, how do you reconcile that or feel comfortable in those situations?
I think about this all the time. Like, how did I end up here? Uh, but I'm the type of person, I thrive on adrenaline,
Hmm.
and nothing gets it pumping faster than being like super far outside my comfort zone.
Hmm.
I walk on a stage in front of 10 people or 1,000 people, it doesn't matter. I get the same sort of like, oh, what am I doing here? And that's it's a it's a good feeling. I feel like when I have that, I'm doing the right thing.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of, I think, what has fueled a lot of it. And yeah, you can't be an introvert in every aspect of your life. That's
Right. Yeah. So, and I think it's good for people to hear that. Why do you think you need that to be pushed outside your comfort zone?
well, you just if you don't, you just never grow.
Hmm.
Um, it's comfort is nice, but it's I don't maybe there are people who say I just want to be comfortable. I don't want to push myself, but I for me anyway, I don't like feeling stagnant. So
And how do you think your small town roots have helped you in one of the largest cities that you could live in? So.
well, it's funny. I work from home, so
Mhm.
my view of Los Angeles is kind of just like the community that I live in, my
Yeah.
neighborhood,
Hmm.
my neighbors. And so it kind of, in a weird way, feels like a small town living
Hmm.
that that happens to be surrounded by a lot more city. Um, but for me, it's just community.
Yeah. So it's just really striving for that comfort level of community wherever you are at. Wherever you are at.
Yep.
Um, yeah. but it's still with all your jobs and so forth, the navigation you've had to do from the background that you've had is pretty impressive.
I could have never told you at the beginning this was where it's going. I don't know, I don't know where I am now and how where I'll end up in 2 years, 5 years. I think that's part of the joy of it.
Yes. Yeah. You have to have that innately inside you.
Hmm.
So great. There's so many great things that we've talked about today. I'd like to close up with some rapid fire questions, and you pick a category. So family and friends, money, spiritual, or health.
Hmm. Let's talk about spirituality. That's always a good
Okay,
one.
good. All right. Things or actions I don't have that I want with spirituality.
A daily meditation practice, which
Mm,
leads to, you know, deeper enlightenment.
yeah. Um, do you meditate at all?
Yes,
Oh, okay. It's
just not
just
daily.
keeping it consistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Things or actions I do have and I want to keep.
Uh, I'd say a sense of self and the knowledge of what like separates self from body. Like there,
Mhm.
I think that's a really helpful thing to study and understand. Um, and a whole bunch of different reasons why, but
So
it's come
where
through
do
a
you
lot of meditation.
meditation? Yeah. So things or actions I don't have that I don't want to have as far as spirituality.
Uh, I don't want, I don't have, and I don't want to have um, suffering,
Hmm.
honestly, struggle.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, last one. So things or actions that I do have that I don't want.
I just said I don't have struggle, but I do actually. uh, and it's a good a good it's even a good reminder to sort of uh, focus on that and meditate on it,
Mhm.
and it does go away. I mean, you sort of embrace it and then you can see your way through it. But you
Yeah.
know,
And how important is whatever you're struggling with and really
yep,
getting outside yourself. Yeah, because our
yep,
brains will monkey mind that over and over. And that's the benefit of a meditation practice. So,
yeah. I think meditation and yoga. I mean,
mm,
I remember saying during COVID to my husband, like I feel like I between meditation and yoga, as humans, we have enough. That's all we
mhm,
really need. If we
mhm,
can just have those two things, it's enough. And
mhm.
I do believe that.
Yeah, it's fun. So I'm a yoga teacher, and when I train yoga teachers, that's one of the things because it's like when you've gone through the process, you see how much you feel better. You have this toolkit to help you, but then especially when you're going through teacher training and you're learning even more, it's like you've got to like not tell everyone, well, if you just do yoga, it'll fix it.
I mean, it may address
Yeah,
the short term, but
it's like yeah, like you just have to kind of, know where people are in the journey and help them along the way because it's funny because as you go through it, you're like, it seems too simple, that we have this natural toolbox to help us through these things. Doesn't make life simpler, but that there's something to support us.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, anything you want to make sure the audience takes away from our conversation that we haven't talked about or you want to emphasize?
I would say for me, it's the theme when I look back on the weird journey I've had professionally and personally too is good people are the thing that sort of always speaks to me. Mentors, people trying to help you. So definitely seek those people out in your life, but also try to be that person for others because
Mhm.
everyone deserves it, right? Yeah, someone is out there in need of help from you probably today. So seek opportunities to be that person for others.
Yeah, I love that. So true. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today, Daniel. I really appreciate it. And I know our audience does too.
All right, thanks so much.
And now for my mindful moments with this interview with Daniel Lemin. So, hopefully, all of you enjoyed the takeaways from this interview. And we really talked about him coming from a small town in Ohio and making this transition, going to college when he didn't have anyone that was an example of that, but the sacrifices his mom made to make sure that his brother and him could get to college at a reduced fee by working there. But one of the things that was a real focus of this conversation was all about how those people that really take notice of us and reach out and help us really can gear our pathway. And a lot of times we forget the important part of taking time to be able to reach out, help someone, or make sure our work is helping someone. And when we talked about his college professor, and really that college professor was someone that he just took the class but resonated with. And I think it's so important because even myself being in college or seeing my kids go to college as well, those teachers that actually take the time to go beyond the content of the textbook, but actually bring it to life, actually show that they are keeping up with the times of the content that they are educating on, but also doing it in a way that resonates with the teens, the young adults that they're working with is so important. That even as professionals, we need to think about this ourselves, that what worked for us to however we like to be managed or led isn't necessarily the way that a new person coming into our workplace or profession needs to be led or managed as well. And we don't know what's going to resonate for them if we don't open our eyes and actually look to see what are the things that resonate for them and how can I bring that into what I do every day so that I can draw those people in. And so I think it's really important that we think about where we can shift that might make an impact on someone. And maybe we never know that impact, but the fact that they go down that journey. And you can see that here with his professor, that because that professor resonated with him, that pushed him to take another direction in his career because he shifted his degree just to follow that professor and really look to him as a mentor. The other mentor that he really talked about as well was a woman by the name of Camilla that was his boss, that when they had the unfortunate experience of going out of business, she went above and beyond, not just having to let people go, but actually helping him get his next role. And the way she went about it, of actually going to a career event for Google and talking to them on his behalf, showing up in that way for other people goes such a long way. And think of the impact that it made on him and the growth in his career because of working at Google. And it's all because someone just reached out, because a personal connection on someone you're going to hire versus someone that's just on paper is so important. The other thing that we talked about that I think was important is that just because we may be naturally an introvert, or we could be a mix of an introvert and an extrovert, or an extrovert, whatever that is, it doesn't mean that we have to put ourselves in a box and not allow ourselves to grow and take on things that might be uncomfortable. I think, many times when we get labeled a certain way, that we decide that that is our fate And if something's going to go against that label or wouldn't be typical for someone in that label, then we don't go down that path. And I can just use an example. And again, this goes back to, the power of the words of an educator. Just in the last couple years, my son was going to college orientations, and he was deciding between architecture and finance. And we happened to have been at an orientation, and a finance professor was in the room, and we started asking him questions, and he was curious what my son's major was and why he was minoring in finance at the time. And when my son said he was going to do architecture and finance, he said, that's not usually the case. Right and left brain people don't exist, which was very hard as a parent to hear a teacher actually say that to somebody, because I do believe myself that we use all sides of our mind and our brain, and we don't limit ourselves. And so to limit ourselves based on whether we're good at numbers or we're creative, we all have to just push ourselves out of that thinking that there isn't a cookie cutter for every profession, for every type of person, that we all have the opportunity to push ourselves to do things that are uncomfortable, which is what Daniel was talking about, is really pushing yourself outside that comfort zone so that you can get comfortable and you can find ways for you to be able to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish in life. So I hope that this episode was very helpful for those of you thinking about how you can either reach out to someone or be able to find a mentor yourself that will help you along your journey. And if you liked this episode, please share it with your colleagues and friends and subscribe to this episode. And make sure to leave us a testimonial. We love to read them, and we so appreciate the fact that you're our audience and you resonate with the types of conversations that we have on this podcast. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more, so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.